Hey guys, welcome back to Book Club. Today is going to be a different kind of episode because the first couple ones were about like my year goals and then what I did last year and certain stuff like that. But this is kind of different. I'm going to talk about what I got at Barnes & Noble today, since that's where I usually get my books from because I'm a member. So it's sort of a book haul, I guess, but not really, because I only bought one book and a notebook, but I guess I can talk about both things real quick. Guess I'll just start off with this. I bought a Moleskine notebook because I wanted to start keeping a dream journal. I kept a dream journal back in high school, and I don't know, it was for a class. I think it was psychology. We had to keep a dream journal for a certain amount of time, and I just kept doing it afterwards. But then I stopped once the journal got full. But I've been thinking more about dreams recently. It's something I've been writing a lot about, is dreams and memories and things like that. So I think it'd be interesting to try and keep an actual dream journal for the purpose of keeping a dream journal, not for like a class like I did before. So I think that'd be pretty interesting, which isn't really related to book club, which I can probably talk about in another series. Series, as if book club is a series with a beginning and an end. Another, I guess, series of videos about writing, which I can probably talk more about that there. But the book that I bought today is Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life, An Antidote to Chaos. Now, I've been listening to Jordan Peterson for a while now. If you don't know who he is, let me just read one of the things in the back, which is sort of a summation of who he is. Jordan Peterson is the most important and influential Canadian thinker since Marshall McLuhan. His international fame and impact continue to grow exponentially. Peterson's bold and interdisciplinary synthesis of psychology, anthropology, science, politics, and comparative religion is forming the template for the genuinely humanistic university of the future. Jordan Peterson is a psychologist from Canada. I'm trying to find some more information in the book about him. I've mostly been listening to him on podcasts. He was on a couple podcasts with Sam Harris, and I talked a little bit about Sam Harris when I brought up his book, Waking Up. Sorry about the popping. I obviously don't have a pop filter for this yet, so sorry, I apologize. He's been on Sam Harris's podcast a few times, and they talked about a few different things, and I started to really listen to him, like what he was saying, I should say, after their second podcast. And one of the things he brought up was about literary heroes, and I had just finished reading The Idiot at that point, and that really resonated with me, where he was talking about different religions and their their quote unquote literary heroes, like Jesus Christ in the Bible, and he was talking about like the heroic journey and a lot of these different things dealing with morality and dealing with personal development and things like that. And it really struck me. I remember when he described Jesus as a literary hero and not as a mythical thing, it struck home for me for some reason. I think a big part of that is the fact that I just finished reading The Idiot, and I saw the main character in there as somewhat of a literary hero. And that just opened my mind up to so many possibilities about growth spiritually and thinking about ideals and who and what to emulate in life to try and become better. And I know people usually talk about that with religion, but we can talk about that a different day. But Jordan Peterson, in general, he talks about that on his podcasts, and he also talks about his views when it comes to the political space that we're in right now when it comes to the far left and the far right, and like the very authoritarian views that are being espoused on both ends, and the toxic identity politics and things like that. And he actually came to prominence for there's a bill. I don't know if it was passed, since it was in Canada. I didn't really follow it that much. There's a bill either proposed or passed that would consider it hate speech if you didn't use the right pronoun for someone, that you could get arrested for using the wrong preferred pronoun. And he was completely against that, saying that it was authoritarian and that it was that kind of rhetoric will just lead to darker things down the line. And he blew up because of that scandal. And he's kind of come more, I wouldn't say into the public eye, because this is more, I hate to differentiate between the internet and like television as the public eye, but he has definitely got a bigger space on the internet than on television. He actually was on television recently on Channel 4 in England, where he went on and talked about his views about the psychological differences and biological differences between men and women, and those certain differences that play into social roles, and a bunch of really interesting things. And his interviewer, I can't think of her name right now, but she kept lambasting him and trying to shoehorn his views into little boxes that she could attack. And it's been blowing up all over the internet around these circles of social justice and people who try and have conversations about these issues. So I've been listening to him a lot, and his views, aside from all of that, about personal growth and what an individual needs to do in this kind of world, this kind of climate of stark ideologies and very combative views that aren't conducive to even conversation. One of his big things is that you need to, for you to live a meaningful life, you need to concentrate on yourself, and you don't need to strive for happiness. You need to fix the things in your life, accept that suffering and bad things are a part of life, and just not necessarily transcend them, but attack them head on, and then grow from that. And that is how you can have a meaningful life. And this book, 12 Rules for Life, which I just started tonight, and I just started the first rule, goes over how what someone needs to do to put themselves on a right track to live a more meaningful life individually, which then compounds as the layers go up. So if you live your life the way you're supposed to, it'll affect your household, it'll affect your family, it'll affect your social groups, and so on and so forth. And the sooner we take responsibility for our own lives and do what we need to do as people, then the rest of the world will set itself up. And the way he puts it, since he's been doing lectures about about Genesis, and in a way dissecting the Bible stories as a way to bring up moral truths from the Bible, like universal truths, which I haven't looked into those yet. I'm interested to hear what he has to say, since what he said about literary heroes really struck me. But he he always talks about how the things that we do move us closer to heaven or hell in our lifetime, and that how heaven and hell aren't really places outside of life, that they exist here, and all the actions we take as people drive us closer to an existence that is more like hell or more like heaven. And he talks about how the 20th century it showed us a lot of what life looks like when we go towards hell. Like he talks about, he spent a lot of time. One of his biggest research things, I know this goes a lot, I'm not really even talking about the book anymore, I'm talking about him as a person, but this kind of all feeds into it. So, a lot of his research over the past couple years, or past couple decades actually, has been reading into why, like the mindset behind Hitler and Nazi Germany and how that could happen psychologically. And he has done research on, whenever he talks about hell and what has been shown to us about hell, he brings up Auschwitz and the final solution, how those are like the worst, ideologically, the worst things that we have done. That Stalin's reign and subsequent killing of hundreds of millions of people in the Soviet Union, the gulags, the millions of people who died in Mao's China, and how all of those authoritarian left-wing and right-wing extremes lead to the worst that we can do as people, and how the big issue behind that is like toxic group thinking, and how we as people need to transcend our groups to become fruitful individuals who live lives with meaning. And I agree with that. I've actually just, like the past couple of years, and it's funny he talks about this a lot, the past couple of years I've been living my life, well, I'd say maybe up until about a year ago, I was living my life very nihilistically. I didn't find meaning in life. You know, the universal truth that life is without intrinsic meaning, that we need to ascribe meaning to life, but taking that in a negative way and saying that life is meaningless, therefore what do we need to do, and just having a general negative outlook or sub-neutral outlook about life and decision making and things like that, and living a go with the flow existence, I guess, but not in a positive way. And he talks about nihilism and how that kind of thinking came out of the destruction of old values and this whole thing of postmodernism and everything. And I can't articulate it as well as he can, because obviously he's been like doing research and talking and thinking about all these things. He's like 50 something, so decades. I would definitely tell anyone to seek him out, listen to what he has to say, and see if it's palatable to you. But a lot of the things he says resonates with me as a young person, trying to find meaning and figure out what to do with my life, and to live and to live a meaningful life. I almost said lead a happy life, but lead a meaningful life, so that when I do find strife, I know that it's for something in the future, that I will be better off from it because I'm working towards something, and I make my own goals and things like that. And I think that from listening to him, and then from when I finish reading this book, I think that I will have a better understanding of who I am in this landscape as I learn more every day about how to think about these things and how to tackle the radical views on every side that are everywhere, and to try and stay as moderate as possible in deciphering how best to proceed in life. which is, always a struggle for everyone, trying to find the best way to do whatever we can to maximize our own happiness and minimize our own strife whenever we can, so that there's no needless suffering, because suffering will always exist. It's just if it doesn't serve a purpose, then it's then meaningless. So I'm really looking forward to reading this. I know actually, I guess I can talk about this too, so give me a second. I know I said that I was going to read War and Peace first this year, and I always do this. I'll pick a book to read, I'll start to read it, and then I hit a roadblock, whether it be concentration, motivation, time, whatever, and then I'll leave my bookmark in there, and then I'll pick something else off my shelf and start reading that instead, and then I'll stick with it. So on the nonfiction side, I'm going to be reading 12 Rules for Life and Antidote for Chaos, and whenever I'm done, or if there's anything in there that I find profound that I want to share, I'll make another video. But for fiction, which actually ties in really well with Jordan Peterson in general, because he brings up Dostoevsky all the time. He actually called him a prophet today in a conversation I heard, and I don't laugh because I think that's stupid. The way he put it, it made a lot of sense, which I would very much again say that you should go out and seek it out. But I'm reading Demons, which I read the foreword for this. I guess I'll just read the back real quick. Sorry. Inspired by the true story of a political murder that horrified Russia in 1869, Fyodor Dostoevsky conceived Demons as a novel pamphlet in which he would say everything about the plague of materialist ideology that he saw infecting his native land. What he emerged with in 1872 was at once his darkest novel until The Brothers Karamazov and his most ferociously funny. For alongside its relentlessly escalating plot of conspiracy and assassination, Demons is a blistering comedy of ideas run amok. And like all of Dostoevsky's novels, it is also a riot of literary voices whose profusion, energy, and variety are rendered wonderfully in this new English version. So yeah, like I've said before about Dostoevsky in my other videos, and the one reason why Jordan Peterson brings him up as a prophet is that he understands the human condition so well, and he can present it to his audience in such a way that, for me at least, when I read his novels, it doesn't feel like I'm reading a fiction. It really feels like I'm reading an account of something real. And he does base a lot of his stuff off of real life, which I think a lot of authors who write this kind of style do. But I'm really looking forward to see what kind of... Because when it comes to materialism, and I'll end on this, I've been living a less frivolous life myself. At least I've been trying to, and like I don't buy needless things, and I try to think less materially. Like I have very simple things, like my watch, for example. I know a lot. Like my brother and a couple other people I know have bought Apple watches. These new touchscreen watches you can send texts from and everything. Like my watch it's not even a digital watch. It's a normal manual watch. The coolest thing about it is that it glows in the dark, but it does it does its purpose. It tells the time. And like I have an older phone that's falling apart. I'm not one of those people who still has a flip phone. I'm still in the now. But when it comes to materialism, and I know this is this feels like I'm talking less about books and more about bigger topics, but I'll try and end on this. Me and materialism, I've been trying to live more minimally when it comes to things, right? After my first summer in Maine at this camp where I was devoid of all of my stuff for 2.5 months, when I came back, I felt like I was, in a clutter of meaningless things. Now, it looks like I got a lot of crap behind me, but a lot of those, I got shelves of movies and like my bookshelf and everything. So I haven't bought a new movie in probably over a year. The last the last video purchase I got was the last season of Game of Thrones, because I have no other way to watch it, and I don't mind owning those things. And they're like, and I think that's what it comes down to, too, about materialistic things and frivolity, which I'll probably talk about in a separate video outside of book club. Is that you shouldn't buy things unless they have meaning, and like that's how I can justify still buying books, is that I find a lot of meaning in my books, and I don't really find a lot of meaning in movies, which has helped me stop. Like, I haven't bought any video games, I haven't bought a new system or any of that sort of thing, but that's aside the point. I've got 2 books on my plate right now, and my dream journal, which I'll talk about in my new writing series of videos. But I really have high hopes for both of these books. I think that they'll give me more insight into life, into how to become a better person. One is a self-help book essentially, and the other one is just a critique, another view into life. So I have high hopes for both of these books, and I can't wait to share these new insights with you guys. So we'll see you on